So we're like working out of this Airbnb, and yeah, I'm like just at my rock bottom with work. Like I'm working 100-hour weeks. I'm just stressed out of my mind. Basically miss my daughter's birth. Realizing like we got to make a change. If I look back, I'm like, why did this work so well? I'm like, that was a big decision we made that changed the course of our whole business. We're on pace to do 150 million in sales. We got about 70 employees. #1 probiotic on Amazon. It's like a rocket ship.
Can you tell us how the heck you scale a supplement company that starts on Amazon?
Yeah.
1, 2, skip a few, 99, 150 million a year.
He is the #1 supplement seller on Amazon.com. His company revenues are $15 million per month. He dominates every industry that he goes into, and the story of how he got there is insane. This is the story of Logan Chierotti.
Logan, the way that I like to start these is just by asking, how did you make your money?
Oh, that's a good question. Mainly from e-commerce. I mean, really all internet marketing. So going back to, you want the whole story?
Tell me.
Okay. Back to 2007, really. I dropped out of college. Everyone was like, this is the worst decision of your life. Like, you're a fucking idiot. Can I say fuck?
You can say fuck shit.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want.
All right. So everyone's like, you're a fucking idiot. So I was like, I got a lot of proof. So I was like, I better make this work. Drop out of college. I get my real estate license. And I quickly realized like I look like I'm like 16. So I'm like, no one wants to buy a house from a 16-year-old. Like, this isn't working. So I started being like, how can I get leads? Like, what can I do to like get people to buy houses? And I launched a website and I started doing like SEO because I kind of understood that world. I was young and no one else was doing it. This was before Zillow was Zillow. And all of a sudden I'm like putting up property addresses, like using the IDX and like, I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting a bunch of leads and I start selling those to real estate agents. And so that was kind of like my first taste of like, oh, and then all of a sudden like I was getting like 200, 300 leads a day. So I was selling more leads than I knew what to do with. And that was kind of the start of my like online, okay, I can make money online. From there, I never had a job. So I sold that, started another company, consumer goods company, actually, that was like, we were trying to go retail though. This was kind of before e-commerce was e-commerce.
What year was this?
That was like 2010.
Okay. So this is before e-commerce is popularized.
Big, yeah. So we're like, okay, this sucks. So we decided like, okay, let's sell this because we're just not making money. I mean, it was like doing a few million a year in sales and maybe like a few 100,000 in like profit, but like it was stressful. So we sell that just to get out of it, basically. I think we like barely made any money on it, if any. I think maybe made like a few $100,000. But from there, we had a competitor that was like just slandering us online all the time, like writing all this bad shit about us. So we're like, let's start a reputation management and like start like.
So you're all over the place.
We're all over the place.
You're like real estate and energy.
I'm whatever I could do to make a buck at this point.
Reputation management. This is
sure.
just everywhere.
It's everywhere, bro. Yeah. It gets even weirder. So basically, I just wanted to make money. Like my dad was a house cleaner. Like I came from no money. So I was like, I got to like figure out how to make money. So we started this reputation management business. It's going okay. And then we get in this weird niche of removing people's mugshots from the internet. So like there was this, we kept getting all these calls of like lawyers and doctors.
Call you recently?
No, that's good. I like that. Logan Paul did call us way back in the day, like 2012, to get something removed.
The WWE United States champion Logan Paul?
Yeah,
that Logan Paul?
All right. Yeah.
So Trump and Logan Paul are your influencers at the time.
Those are my role models. I'm just kidding. So we're getting all these calls from people like, hey, can you remove our mugshots? So we're like, okay, how do we get these removed? And so we start like contacting the site owners and they're like, yeah, we'll remove it for, $5-10. And so we start removing these and then we're charging people like $400 or $500 to do it. And the site owners start like, only wanting us to do it because they don't want to deal with all the people calling them. So we get these like exclusive relationships with these mugshots. This is a totally shady world. So we're removing all these mugshots. And that scaled up. We were like removing hundreds of mugshots a day, like through just these weird relationships we developed. And then we sold that business. And we actually made like a few million on that. I was like, all right, that was really good. And I thought at the time I was like in my young 30s, I was like, all right, this is enough to retire. I took 2 years off. I had like 2 young kids, or 1 young kid at the time. My wife was pregnant. I got really bored. I was like gardening and I got like chickens and I was like, damn.
What's the dream, Logan?
It's a lot of people's dream. Yeah. I thought it was my dream. And then I realized like, this is not as fun as I thought it was going to be. So then I started seeing what was going on Amazon. I actually started following you And I saw your content on Facebook and like some other places. I was like, man, look at all these people just like killing it on Amazon, making a ton of money. My business partner was like, we can't get back into retail though. That was a horrible, like, that was so terrible. Walmart, we got into Walmart at that Energy Man business. We had to buy back all our stock because it wasn't selling. It was just like a mess. But I was like, this just looks so different than like, housing millions of dollars in inventory. I'd always wanted to start like a supplement company. If I go way back, I had this like accident that I lost hearing in my ear and like supplements fixed that, long story short. So I'd always had a big interest in supplements. I worked at GNC, like I was a big supplement guy. I kept talking about it. My wife was like, if you don't fucking shut up about this and start a supplement company, like, she's like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, either just do it or shut the fuck up. So I was like, all right, I'm doing this.
So I can imagine that's exactly how your wife said it too.
She might have been a little nicer. So it's funny enough, dude, I actually went to me and Ryan, my business partner, went to your capitalism conference. I want to say this like 2017, maybe.
Okay.
I think it was here in Austin, 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. We go to your conference. And I got like super jazzed. And I'm not just saying this to like pump your conference. Like I got super jazzed up.
That's right. You're speaking at the next one.
Yeah, so. I am. Yeah, for sure.
You're speaking. Pump it up all you want.
For sure. But I was
Capitalism.com/Capcon.
There you go. We go to your conference and we're like, okay, we're going all in on this. Like we're starting a supplement company. We're going to get super aggressive. We're going to launch. We didn't know what it was called. I think originally called it like Bio Labs or like something crazy. We saw Bio Schwartz and we're like, that's a good company. Let's try to come up with something like that. So we're like Bio Nutra, Bio
That was
Nature.
funded by another member of the capitalism.com community.
There you go.
That's
yeah.
great.
Oh yeah, Alex Upperman, right?
No, that was Sebastian.
Sebastian. That's
But
right. Okay.
Alex did well too.
Yeah. He was in there too, right?
They all did great.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this, the company is now called
Physician's Choice.
and it's doing okay, I hear.
It's just okay.
Could you just take us fast forward? I mean, you're pretty public about what it does on your Twitter
for sure.
X profile. So tell us what has happened, how big the company is at this point.
Yeah. So today we're on pace to do 150 million in sales. We got about 70 employees. We're number one probiotic on Amazon, or number 2 or 3 at Walmart.
I see you at CVS.
CVS, Target, right? At this point, we have like 70,000 retail touch points. So we've like done really well in retail. And we're still growing. Like we're still pushing retail really hard. Amazon's a huge channel for us. I mean, it's like a rocket ship at this point.
These numbers are amazing, obviously. So can you tell us how the heck you scale a supplement company that starts on Amazon?
Yeah.
1, 2, skip a few, 99, 150 million a year. So what does that process look like? Because it's not like you can spend enough on pay-per-click to get to those top line revenue numbers. So what levers are you pulling, especially 2018, 2019, when you start to see some momentum?
Yeah. I mean, early days, we were doing a lot of pay-per-click. Like we were relying heavily on paid ads. We kind of go into like 2020 and the game started to shift a little bit. We started to see like, okay, we had this kind of strategic epiphany, if you want to call it, or I did and my business partner did, where it was like, at the time we had a bunch of different random supplements, like a turmeric and an ashwagandha and like all these other supplements and probiotics. And they were all like doing okay. Like we had a collagen that's doing well and ashwagandha doing well. What I started seeing, like I was like looking at Goli and like Vital Proteins and some of these other brands. And I was like, how are these guys doing so well? And like, why are we just kind of like feeling like we're spread too thin? So I was at this point, I'm like, I think we need to just narrow down our focus and like just go really hard into one category.
Mm-hmm.
With the mindset of we are going to win in this category. And for us, that category is probiotics. I was like, we're going to discontinue SKUs outside of probiotics. We're going to double down on probiotics and we are going to win in that category. And it sounds like maybe like a little thing, like, oh, okay, we can all say that, right? But like at the time, I mean, you were in Amazon, it's like the golden nuggets and like the opportunities you can see everywhere. It's like hard to turn those down. It's hard to say no to like, what could a number one turmeric product be? What could a number one like magnesium product? Like all these opportunities are in front of you, but we just decided like, no, we're good marketers. We're not necessarily great at like inventory or like launching product. Like, I mean, we're good at these things, but I look at like Mary Ruth Organics, another great business, right? Like they are really good. They're like an innovation powerhouse. They're launching hundreds of SKUs. They have 500 SKUs. For us, I was like, that is not our specialty. Like our specialty is being number one in a category. And like, if we come into a category, our goal is to be number one. Like we're going in digestive enzymes. We're going to be the number one digestive enzyme. We're going to like crush the competition. We're going to take over. And I think that focus has been like a really key strategy to our success.
So you went to fewer SKUs and your volume went up. Why do you think that was?
I think it was the focus. I think it was like we were able to take a lot of marketing dollars. We picked a great category, probiotics, and then we were able to take marketing dollars from, SKUs like Joint Health and Ashwagandha. They're doing okay, and they're like, making a few million even. Some of them are doing decent, and we were able to take those ad dollars though and just jam them behind something and create more of a brand, like more of a following on a product that actually people enjoy and like. And we were able to say, okay, we can really market these products as opposed to just like have a bunch of products that are doing.
Yeah, it's hard to build a brand and a raving fan base when you're spread all over the place because you don't build up any reputation. What are you building up reputation for being good at if you're doing everything? And I'll tell you, the 1 year that we really struggled with our supplement brand was when we saw all these other brands popping up in all these other spaces, and we're like, hey, maybe we've topped out serving this ideal market. Let's go down one and sell the generic things that everybody else is selling. And that really diluted our focus. And it took us another year to make those go away and put our focus back into the SKUs that were working. And then the company got back on track. And then we had a really healthy exit. But when we were spread all over the place, that was awful. It's just whack-a-mole. And when you have one of those strategies that works, it's hard to apply that across 90 different SKUs, but you can apply it on 4. And that is what gives you the customer flow to be able to invest in the things that you want to invest in. Now, I know, because I follow your X posts, I know that there was a period either right at the end of your other business or at the beginning of Physician's Choice where it didn't seem like it was going so well. Like I think you even had an offer on Physician's Choice really early and you were thinking about just dumping it.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So our first year, it was terrible. I mean, just flat out. Like I think we did like $3 million in revenue. We lost $1 million.
Sounds awful.
Oh, wait. I'm getting there.
Oh, it only did $3 million in the first 12 months.
But we lost $1 million.
Oh, you lost $1 million.
Yeah,
okay, well, then there's that.
So and that was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money, right? I was like, oh shit, what do we do here? Like I was like, I think we just made a huge financial disaster. Like
How do you lose $1 million when you have $3 million in revenue in year 1?
Because we were just really aggressive with like discounts, promos, pay-per-click, anything we could do to like try to be like, we got our ashwagandha product to the #1 spot at the time. We're like, okay. And our probiotics were doing really well, but we were spending so much to do that, which is also not good. We can go to this later, but it's still part of our core strategy, spending real aggressively. Like we're super aggressive on ad spend, and that has been one of our strategies since day one.
But you were going too aggressively.
Too aggressive.
Over too many products.
Yeah.
Was that an ego play?
Probably. Yeah. It becomes an ego play because we get into like the spot where we're the #1. I would get in these like things where we're the best, winning the bestseller badge. Someone takes our badge. I'm like, oh, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, let's crank up ad spend. Let's give more coupon. Like we are taking this badge, which ended up working out in our probiotic space, but like cost us a lot of money in a lot of other categories too.
So that first year you lose $1 million.
Lose $1 million.
And you're thinking about just packing it in.
Yeah, we're thinking about packing it in. 2019, we start to do a little better. Actually, things start to kind of take off in 2019. We're seeing a glimmer of hope. Revenues are scaling. We start to get some profit in. And I actually get a call. I get on the phone with AJ from Zesty Paws. And at the time, he was doing Purple Rock. So they had like a private equity thing he was doing.
Yeah.
They fly us out to New York. I want to say they offer us like $5 million for Physician's Choice, and they give us the whole spiel. They take us out to this like great dinner, this great place in New York, and wine and dine us. And we're like considering it because I'm like, this is hard. Like this sucks. This is much harder than I thought it was gonna be. So at that time, we're considering it, but the business is just getting like a little better month by month. We're growing more and more. So I'm like, I don't think so. Let's hold off. Maybe we'll circle back to them in like a year or two. And thank God we didn't do that.
What changed in those next 12 to 18 months?
That's a good question. I think one of the big things, which to this day is like just been huge for us, is being in a category with subscription revenue. So like we just started building up tons of subscribers. We started really focusing in on that probiotic category. We just started winning in that category. Like BioShorts was the winner at the time. Like they were the #1, and we were like inching up behind them because we were just like being so aggressive. And I was like, if we take this #1 probiotic spot and like get that bestseller badge, I was like, this could be just a game changer. So we're dumping all our profits back into like doing this. I mean, I think we probably did, these numbers are a little crazy, but they're true. 2019, we do 26 million. And I want to say we probably were pretty close to breaking even or had very little profit. Maybe like 2 million profit, very little profit. We were dumping all back into just marketing and being #1.
That's aggressive.
Super aggressive.
$26 million top line. And
Yeah. Barely making a profit.
yeah.
Yeah.
There seems to have been a change in your mindset somewhere around that time too. Like I see now, you talk about how you lost a bunch of weight. You started making discipline part of your focus. And it seems like you went through some sort of a personal transformation somewhere in the last couple of years. I'm curious what started that, what initiated that, and where was that in the overall journey?
So like those first years, probably the first 2 or 3 years, I was super unhealthy. Like, I was just like, for me, it was like stress eating, not exercising, just working a ton, like basically putting off everything in my life for just business, which was super unhealthy. Like looking back, I'm like, I don't know why I did that. I didn't need to do that, but it was just a way for me to maybe make excuses for being a lazy piece of shit. I don't know.
I get it. I have a mentor, Kyle Carnahan, who likes to say that we often try to borrow from an area of strength to compensate for our weaknesses. So if you are strong in business, you will use that as an excuse to not be healthy, to not have good relationships. And when your relationships aren't working, you try to double down on what is. So you work more.
That's said much better.
And when your health is shit, you say, I'll just make more money. I'll throw money at this problem. And that works for a while because you're not used to the momentum that you're getting in that one area. But eventually that catches up to you.
It catches up, yeah.
It sounds like it started to catch up.
It caught up for me. And it was like kind of one of these stories where I like saw a picture of myself at my office with like all our coworkers. I was like, holy shit, is that what I look like? Like I looked really fat, really unhealthy, just like really just disheveled. And that was kind of the start of like, I got to make a change. But I just kept putting it off. I had like told myself this over the years. And like, oh, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to change. One day I was just like, you know what? Like, fuck this. I'm going to start working out every day. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to start eating healthier. So I started doing that. And then I actually got into like following that. I follow like Brian Johnson. So
you're trying to age backwards?
I'm trying to age backwards. Yeah. But I found him like
so now you look 16 again?
I don't know. Tell me.
Going back into real
Is it
estate.
working? Yeah. I'm actually 80.
Do you remember? Did you follow Kevin Trudeau back in the day?
No, but I know you're talking about.
He was like the first guy that popularized organics and alternative eating and stuff. Then he went to jail, of course. But he wrote a book. He wrote a book claiming to be in his 80s.
I like that.
What?
I do remember this guy. He was like an infomercial guy, right? Yeah, for sure.
And
yeah.
I loved his first book. And then he released a follow-up, and he said he was in his 80s. And he was like, I think I might be in a cult.
I've wondered that about Brian Johnson. I'm like, I don't typically follow dudes like this, but I'm like super into it. I'm like, am I getting too weird here?
So you're in love with Brian Johnson, and you're
like,
trying to age backwards.
You caught me, yeah. Very true. So I started following his stuff, and then I just got super into like health and wellness. And
you started taking probiotics.
I started taking probiotics. It's all the probiotics, bro. That's the truth. What are we talking about here?
All you did was take this pill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I lost 50 pounds overnight.
Beautiful.
You can get them at physicianschoice.com. Oh, disclaimer, that's not true. But no, I did realize like getting healthier and like, I was taking like Adderall, I was drinking tons of coffee. I was just like a fucking mess. And I thought I was like high functioning. I thought I was like functioning at my peak and just eating like shit. And then I clear like all that shit out of my system. I'm just like, now I'm like, okay, I am like peak performance now. Like I can't believe how far I got in life, like operating the way I did. Now that I'm like thinking so clearly, I'm not drinking coffee and like I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising. I'm like, man, if I would have been like this for the last 10 years, Physicians Choice would be $1 billion company.
What's the difference? Tell me.
I know it sounds like so cliche, right? Everyone's like, oh, I have more energy, but like I really do have more energy. I think much clearer. And I would say the energy isn't like, oh, I'm just like bouncing off the walls. It's just more sustained. Like throughout the day, I have more sustained energy. I'm thinking much more clearly. I'm not making like erratic decisions. I don't feel like everything is like jammed up. Like, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to this. I'm like, all right, we got some time, like patience, think clearly. When I was in that grind, like pounding coffee, just like pounding anything I could to get an edge. Like it was just like that to me. It was like, I was very erratic, like just making decisions.
I can relate.
Yeah.
It seems to me, I'm speaking from personal experience and projecting it onto the rest of the world, but it seems like in our entrepreneurial world, there's this desire to get somewhere fast. And so we consume things that make us go faster. And then we start making short-term decisions instead of good long-term decisions. And that catches up to us. And I think what you're saying is that you were in that kind of a cycle. You're just blitzing Earth to get to number one, but you're not turning a big profit. You're working all the time. You're stressed all the time. And then you started to slow down mentally anyway. And that's when you started to make long-term decisions that took Physician's Choice to a 9-figure company.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. You said it better than I did. But really, like in there, there's like this key turning point too, where we're like working out of this Airbnb, and I'm like just at my rock bottom with work. Like I'm working 100-hour weeks. I'm just stressed out of my mind. Like I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I basically miss my daughter's birth. Like my wife's going into labor. She's got like tubes sticking out of her. She, like IVs in her. I'm like in the corner on my laptop, just like, this is like embarrassing story. Like it's
during birth.
You're
on your laptop.
I'm on my laptop. Yeah. Working like a fucking degenerate. Like it makes me sick even like saying that, but it's like,
can you remember what was so pressing to have your laptop out during birth?
Probably something with some bestseller badge at the time, like fucking bestseller badges. It's horrible, dude. But I felt like I had no choice. I was like, the company's doing 20, 30 mil. Like I cannot let, I'm like in a corner. Like I got to do this. And there's like 3 or 4 of us at the time doing this. So that was like kind of rock bottom for me. And then I'm realizing like, we got to make a change. So at this point, I'm like, we got to hire a finance person. Like at this, we don't know what's going on with our finances really. Like we're trying to do our books ourselves. Like I'm trying to hire bookkeepers. I'm throwing out ads for like bookkeeper here, bookkeeper there. I'm getting like Mary Jo Sue in, and she can't like open Slack. She can't figure out her fucking email. I'm like, this is just not working. So I call one of my good buddies. He's like a CFO of a $2 billion a year freight company. I'm talking to him. I'm like, bro, I can't get a bookkeeper. He's like, dude, what is this bookkeeper term you're throwing out? He's like, you got a $30 million a year company. He's like, you need a fucking serious finance person in here. He's like, you need like a VP of finance or a minimum like controller, like probably a CFO. So that's kind of when I was like, all right, I don't know shit about like building teams or like scaling, like I've run some small businesses, but I've never run like a $50, $100 million company. So that opened my eyes like, okay, I got to figure out how to build a team. Got to figure out how to scale this thing. Like me, my business partner, and like the other 2 dudes I'm working with, like we can't all do this ourselves. Like this is just not sustainable. So I make a weird choice. Is this story interesting to you?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So I make this weird choice. I'm like, all right, let's hire an HR person to go out and recruit and like build a team for us, because I'm like showing up to job interviews just disheveled, like looking like a crackhead, like and trying to hire people, and they're just like, is this guy like making supplements in his basement or something?
So at this point, you knew you needed to make a change, but you hadn't changed yet.
I hadn't changed. I didn't know how. I didn't think I was. At this point, I was like trying to interview people, and we're in an Airbnb too, like working out of an Airbnb. I'm bringing people in, interviewing them. One dude even asked me, he's like, are you guys making these supplements in the basement? Like, he's like, what kind of like shoddy operation? Like my office is in a bedroom. Like it's just like very shoddy looking. So I feel like I can't make a change. So we go and rent this office space.
How old were you at this point, Logan?
Probably 36, 37.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, we need to professionalize the business a little bit. Like we're never gonna get a proper finance person in here. We're never gonna like be able to build out a team if we're like in the suburbs, like in this weird, Airbnb we transformed, and like just a bunch of like dudes in a frat house basically. So we move into an office, and I just like, my business partner and the guys working for us, like, dude, you are insane. Like hiring an HR person. Like, why would we hire an HR? We don't have like sexual harassment complaints. Like there's no fights at the water cooler. Like this guy's out of his mind. But I pushed through. I'm like, no, we got to hire an HR person. Like we need someone to just do full-time recruiting for us. Like I want them to build a culture. I want them to bring in like a team of A players. Like I want to set the stage for it. And so we do that, and we get what I considered at the time like a really good HR person. This lady comes in. She's very professional. She's wearing a suit. She puts together like a hiring funnel, a recruiting process, and she starts like just professionalizing everything around hiring, recruiting, benefits plans, like really professionalizing that side of the business. And from there, we start like recruiting much better finance people. We start recruiting much better people in general. And that was kind of like as weird as it sounds, like HR person, like this sounds like a bunch of...
That sounds very random. Yeah, I did not expect the story to go in that direction.
For sure. But it was really about building a team. Like from there, we get our CFO, Brock, who's just like with us to this day. He's like absolute killer, like one of the best hires I've ever had, like great business mind. We start getting talent like that just like take us to the next level that I wouldn't have got if we didn't have like this professional recruiting HR person that was like, it was like smoke and mirrors, right? Like, so I could show up to an interview. It's like, here's this crazy looking founder who's like talking in circles, but he's got professional HR person that she's talking about benefits plans and 401ks.
It gave you some cover.
Yeah.
It gave you some space
for sure
for you to then transform.
100%.
So until then, you don't know how to change because you're just in the mud trying to keep it together.
100%.
And it sounds like this hire brought in a little bit of cushion to be able to hire the next person who gave you a little bit more space.
Yeah.
And then the next person give you a little bit more space.
Exactly.
And now you have a little bit of capacity to invest back into yourself. Is that a fair summary?
That's exactly it, bro. And it was the space too. Like when you say that, I'm like, okay, that pinpoints it, because at this point, it's like I barely have time to be interviewing. I'm like showing up to interviews and I'm like stressed out because I got a million other things to do. And it's like I'm not present. I'm not engaged in these interviews. But when I have this person that's all they're focused on is recruiting. Their whole job is recruiting, bringing in A players, building a culture around these people. Like that was her whole job. So she's creating tons of space around that. And then I'm like, oh, this is happening. And then next thing you know, I'm like sitting in a leadership meeting. I mean, this is fast forward a few years later, but I'm sitting in a leadership meeting with like our core group. I got like Brock, Alberto, our CMO. So I got this team of like just A players. I remember thinking to myself, like, these people are all smarter than I am. Like I am surrounded by like the smartest people I've like ever worked with. And every idea I had, they were like already one step ahead. They're already like, and I'm like, man, this is like amazing. It was like a big lesson to me. Like, okay, I don't need to be involved in our finances anymore. I don't need to be involved in like, even to the like marketing was kind of the last thing I stepped out of. Because to me, that's like my bread and butter. And I'm still like in that because I like it. But I don't need to be. Like I have a great marketing team, great marketing guy. Like everything in the business is firing on all cylinders. And I can poke and prod where I want to and like, annoy people.
When you started investing back into yourself, like obviously we fast forward and you have abs and veins in your arms.
Right.
And you don't drink coffee and you're following the Brian Johnson protocol. But that didn't happen overnight or even quickly. Like I see your post and you're up at like, the butt crack of dawn, cold plunging and
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah,
you're I never thought I'd be one of those guys, just for the record. I hated on those guys forever.
But it sounds like it's been an investment that's paid off. And I'm curious how you started to move in that direction, because you don't change. And I mean, I've experienced it myself where I want to go from like depressed and broke to disciplined and healthy. Like I want to take the same mindset that got me into this mess,
right.
eating my feelings and drinking too much coffee, and I want to apply it to getting healthy again. And it doesn't work like that. So what was that transformation like for you? What did you do first, and how did that start to compound?
Hey everyone, Ryan here. I make a point on this podcast to bring the people who are in the trenches, not the celebrities, not the people that you can find on every other YouTube channel, but the people who are building great companies, the people who are doing amazing things in business. I believe that those are the people that can truly invest in your business, because you'll learn something from them that you won't hear on every other YouTube channel and every other podcast. The reason why I'm able to bring these people onto the show, who then share their years of wisdom, and invest into you and your business is because we have a decent sized audience. So if you haven't done it yet, please take 2.5 seconds to hit the subscribe button. It gives me more leverage to bring on the people who are in the trenches, who don't take time out of their day to go do podcast tours, but they make exceptions for this one because they know the quality of people who listen. So please take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, and now back to the episode.
It's a good question because you're right. It was a long journey. It was like a 2-year journey, really, maybe 2.5, 3 years even to like get there. And I started by just eating healthier, little by little, like eating a little healthier during lunch, like being all right, I kind of clean up my diet a little. I can't eat, Chubby's burritos for lunch and dinner. I got to like supplement one. So I started eating a little better. One day too, I wake up and I have this kind of like mindset shift where I'm like, I got to stop procrastinating, like in my personal life. Like I'm not procrastinating in business. I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I say I'm going to go to a meeting, I show up on time, I'm at the meeting. But everything in my personal life, I'm procrastinating on, like exercise, eating healthy. So I'm like, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start doing stuff that I don't want to do, and I'm just going to start pushing myself. And that actually like turned a corner for me. It was like a weird mental switch because I'd been playing this game for so long with myself of like, start exercising. I never did. I never would do it. I just kept pushing it off. So I start pushing myself to do that. And again, this is like, I start doing a little bit of the bike once a day, doing a little Peloton during COVID, and I start getting there. But over the course of like 2-3 years, it just became almost like an addiction or a habit. But it was a long journey from like building up, eating healthier, a little bit of exercise to like, I'm going full in. And every day I'm like adding new things that I'm like, okay, this will make me feel better. Most of it's stuff I don't want to do.
I can relate completely. I mean, I discovered your business and your public work now when I was just starting to follow a similar path of starting to do things that I don't want to do for the sake of doing them. And it's as simple as they are. It was things like getting up at 5:30 and doing a cold plunge. And those are two things I do not want to do. In fact, those are two of the last things that I want to do. And there is rarely a day that the alarm goes off at 5:30 that I'm like, I'm still like, this is the dumbest thing in the world, getting up at 5:30. But within 10 minutes of being up, I'm really glad I did it. And it's like, that was the hardest thing I did that day, was crawling out of bed when I don't want to crawl out of bed. And I started doing it because I noticed that my like depression or anxiety would wake up at about 7. So I was just like, I'm gonna beat it out of bed by 90 minutes. And if I can get out ahead of it, then it can't catch up to me. And then there was momentum. It was like, hey, this is working. And then the next thing I don't want to do is track my food or get into freezing cold water. And you start to build up a sense of resilience that I didn't know. It was like that was the answer. It wasn't the business answer that I was looking for. Is I thought that the strategy or the business tactic or the person that I would meet would open up the next door or the next breakthrough, and then I would feel better. But it was doing things I didn't want to do that made me the person that could attract those opportunities and those breakthroughs. And I remember I was talking to Kyle again, and I was like, I'm realizing now that all the problems that I have that I project on a business are solved if I just become the disciplined version of myself. Like if I want to make more sales at work, get up at 5:30. Not because there's some magic, but because I now am the type of person who can show up to that meeting or to that negotiation differently than the person who feels bad about himself. And that was when I started to crawl out of a really dark spot. It sounds like it was similar for you, except you already had a $30 million company.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's the exact same though, bro. It is. And even with that company, it's like even we were at 100 million and it was like, I was still in a pretty dark spot. I didn't crawl out of that until like doing exactly what you're talking about. It's like, you just start to realize like, I don't know, you heard this level 1 fun, level 2 fun.
No,
it's an interesting analogy. I won't say this correctly, but there's this fun matrix and it's like level 1 fun, things that what is like things that feel good while you're doing them, but you feel like shit afterwards. Like drugs, it's like you feel great doing it, but you feel like shit afterwards. Level 2 fun is like stuff, it's kind of miserable doing it, but you feel great afterwards. And someone said this to me and I was like, oh, like level 2 fun is where it's at.
Yeah.
Cold plunge. Like for me, even like socializing, I'm like, I never really want to go do social stuff. Like I'm kind of an introverted guy. Like I'm like, I don't want to go but I feel great after I do it. Like coming here doing the podcast, I'm like, I really want to do this, but I'm having a great time. All right. Like, so it's just, I started realizing like I got to push myself to do stuff I don't want to do because I feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
It's the only way to like in business and life, personal life, like my brain tells me like, I want to sit at home and just eat pizza all day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Comfort's a lie.
It's a lie, man.
And
it's a huge lie.
Security is a myth.
Right.
And when we chase those, we just insulate ourselves from anything that can be painful.
Yeah.
And then we don't do anything meaningful. And that sucks in terms of like satisfaction and fulfillment.
100%.
You will never find it by pursuing comfort.
100%.
How are you miserable when you're running a $100 million company?
It's easier. It's easier said. It's like, I mean, what's the word for that is, I don't know. It's that same thing. It's kind of a myth where you think, okay, though you got the money, so everything's figured out. Right. But it's like, I once read something and I think it's very true. It's like the bigger your business gets, almost like the harder it gets. So the the problems start to compound. So at 100 million, now we got 20 million in inventory. That's a big concern. And like now I got serious overhead and I got a lot of employees. And there's like a lot of stress, a lot of shit mounting on my shoulders. So it's like those problems almost just become bigger problems than they were at 10 or 15 million. And now I'm like, this business is much bigger than me myself. So now I'm relying on a lot of people, which is kind of like a stressful thing as an entrepreneur. Like you're so used to doing it as yourself, all yourself. And now you have a team. Like I got to rely on these people. Luckily I had good people, but I don't know, it's the same. It's just what you just said. It's a myth. It's like you think you have the money and the comfort, and then you realize like that doesn't mean shit. Like you got to there's always something more.
You thought you would feel different at 9 figures. And then, you get some chips off the table, you have financial security, and you don't feel all that different.
You don't feel any different.
So what do you discover matters once you're at that level?
I think that like what we're talking about now, really understanding that like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and do it, like it's the building that's fun. Building companies is what's fun. It's not the end result. Like I've really come to realize that because I had that smaller exit granted, like when I was, at the mugshot company. And then I've taken some chips off the table at Physician's Choice. And I've seen other friends like AJ, a lot of people I know, like we all know, like we know people have exits. You start to realize like it's the building of the company that's fun. Like some of the most fun times I've had are like, when we're like trying to figure out how we're going to make payroll and like we're trying to figure out if we can afford this office space and we're like in the weeds coming up with crazy logo. Like those are the fun times, like just the grimy, gritty times. It's like,
are they fun in the moment or are they fun as memories?
They're fun as memories. They're not fun in the moment. This is level 2 fun, bro. This fun matrix. It's good.
That's a fair point. Yeah, it's funny how we recontextualize the really hard times looking back. And part of that I think is you can see what came from those really hard times. I think about some of the hardest times in my life is when I grew the most, when I finally stopped feeling sorry for myself and I started to make a commitment to growing and getting better. There's a sense of pride, and pride can be a long-lasting feeling. Confidence can be a long-lasting feeling, but those short-term level 1 fun experiences, they have the opposite effect. Short-term great, long-term not so great. And it sounds like at some point you started to only prioritize the things that gave you a better experience in the long term.
Yeah. And I'm still working on that, right? I feel like that's a lifelong journey because still part of me in my head is like, it's the money. If I get more money, I'll be more satisfied. But I've realized like, that's just a trap. Anyone I know that has like, there's no amount of money that's ever going to make you happy. And I know that sounds like such foo-foo. Like we've all heard that. I've never believed it. And then I started accumulating wealth and I started realizing, oh, that's fucking true. Like just having a bunch of money doesn't make you happy. It's all about the journey. And it really is. It's like, it's just pushing yourself to do shit you don't want to do.
You've said several times that you wish you had enjoyed it more along the way. Tell me more about why you feel that way.
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like I was in such a rush and I was just so out of it and just so stressed that I didn't really get to enjoy the journey. I was in such a hurry to try to make money. Like I thought that was what I needed to be happy. And then I got a bunch of money. Now I have money and I have a great company. Like I have everything on the outside you could want. And I'm like, there's
Don't
still
forget
more.
abs.
I got abs, bro.
too,
I
yeah.
got the arms. Yeah. I'm working on the abs. They're tough. But like, to me now, I'm like, okay, what's fun? What now? I have a time to step back. Like, what actually means something to me? Like, what means something in life? And it's not the money. It's not like it's working in a company that I enjoy with like fun people, like building something cool, right? It's like, it's why you sell a company and you want to start another one. It's like why I sold a company I want to start. It's like the building is fun, and like you said, the stress. Even when you're in those like dark times, you look back and you're like, man, that was fun.
Well, it's also like everything is contextualized by who you're doing it with.
100%.
And so there's also just wanting to be in it with people that you like too.
Yep.
And that is, I think, the juice of life. And so if you can reverse engineer that, like, who do I want to do hard things with? Who do I want to build great things with? Like, if I can prioritize that piece, then there can be fulfillment and satisfaction the entire time. And then you can enjoy a little bit along the way, and you'll have the pride long term.
Couldn't agree more, Ron. I mean, I got a good story on that. I'll tell you if you're interested. But like to that note, so in 2020, we go to sell Physician's Choice. I'm like, I'm done. Like, we're at I think we're at 70, 80 million at this point. I'm like, okay, we could sell this for a few $100 million. Like, let's get out of this. Well, it's going good. We go on the market. We go to do a sales process. We go to sell the company. And since I had sold some other small business, it's like, I know what this is going to be like. It'll be easy, like not a big deal. We hire a banker, we get this whole process. And like this banker just like rushed us through this. We're like putting together a SIM, a confidential information memorandum, a few hundred pages. I got my executive leadership team. We're ready to go. We go to market, and like what this guy did not prepare us for is like we were walking into like a buzzsaw of just like due diligence. We have Fortune 500 companies doing due diligence on us, like huge strategics, huge private equity firms, because we're at a pretty big size that like we're getting some serious players. But I just like, these were like such hard times. I mean, I'm like getting up at 5, 6 in the morning, getting in the office, like taking calls with people in like Europe from like, big Fortune 500 companies doing due diligence on us with their like European teams, not leaving the office till 9 or 10 at night. We're doing like financial due diligence with like, PricewaterhouseCoopers like auditing us. It's just like just a buzzsaw of due diligence. It was a nightmare. But I look, and at that time I was like, this is horrible. Like this is the worst time of my life. Like I can't believe. And then the deals were falling apart. We had like one offer for like around 100, and we turned it down because I didn't like the private equity firm. I didn't love them. And I look back now and I'm like, that was a lot of fun. I'm like, that was a good time. But at the time I was like, oh, this is like a puke. I never want to do this again. That's why I wanted to hire a CEO, because I was like, I can't do these management presentations again. Like, I don't know if you know about management presentations.
No.
Oh, they're horrible, dude. You got to like sit in front of you. There'll be like 8, 10 private equity people on like a Zoom screen at the time. And you get your management team and presenting to them about the business, and it's 2 hours, and they're peppering you with these hard questions. One of these strategics had like 3 PhDs in probiotics on the due diligence call, and they're grilling us about our like genome probiotic strains, and this one's from China and this one's from Japan, and tell us about your genometric, just all this crazy shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, there's like 3 dudes here like trying to answer these questions from these PhDs. This is grueling. But now I look back and I laugh, and I was like, that was a good time.
That's funny. I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to do a lightning round with me. I don't usually do this, but I'm sitting with the owner of a $150 million e-commerce company, and I would like to do a lightning round of just what's working right now and how you got to where you are. You down for that?
Let's do it.
You have hundreds of thousands of reviews on products. How the heck did you do that?
That's a good question. Well, now our sales velocity is so high, we just get thousands of reviews a week. I know that's not a great answer, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
It just happens.
It just happens.
You have to have some strategy for turning those sales into reviews. They don't just happen automatically.
How we're using that, whatever that tool Amazon has is the request a review tool.
If you're launching a brand today, how would you be doing that?
It's a good question. I'll be trying to leverage some form of TikTok traffic, some form of like viral social traffic to Amazon. And we do a lot of paid social to Amazon. So Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. But I think there's some tricks. There's a lot of this like arbitrage almost, if you want to call it, from like TikTok to Amazon that could be exploited that I haven't figured out, but I know other dudes are doing, and they're doing well with
I see
it.
a lot of people just doing a volume play on TikTok where they'll hire a content creator just for volume of content, because one of those is going to go viral. The viral one becomes an ad, and that's how they're getting a lot of traction, and you can get that really quickly.
Yeah, that's where I'd be focused my time.
It seems to be where there's a lot of white space right now. If you weren't in supplements, or if you sold Physician's Choice tomorrow, what are some of the markets that you would consider going into right now?
Oh, good question. Anything with some sort of subscription base. I like pet supplements, even though, we have a friend that
A couple friends.
a couple friends in those spaces.
Done really well in that space.
I think that's still a great space. I think there's still a lot of room there. I don't know. That's probably, I haven't looked enough into it because I'm so focused.
I like food, beauty, supplements, and pet supplies. Those are the 4 markets that you can just build really strong brands around. With all the personal development and personal transformation they've had over the last few years, what are 3 of the biggest levers that you've pulled that have created the mental clarity that you have and the fulfillment that you have?
I'd say one is, and I know it sounds cliche, but just eating clean. That's been a huge game changer to me. Like the mental clarity I've gotten from cutting out processed carbs, cutting out sugar, and then doing some form of intermittent fasting has just been a complete game changer. Like I wake up and I'm like, oh, this is how I normally should feel when I wake up. Like I spent the last 15 years waking up feeling like I was hungover. It was basically because I ate like shit. So food would be number 1. Number 2 is meditation has been played a huge part in my life. I meditate every morning. I worked with a guy that like really helped me with meditation. For me, that's stress. Like I had a lot of problems with stress, and I still do, but that helps a lot. And I'd say the third one would be cutting out caffeine. I'm an anxious, like nervous fucking guy. So like that was just not doing me any good.
What was that like for you? Because for me, I've kicked it before, but I'm an addict right now. But there's like 2 weeks of just miserable.
There's 2 weeks of miserable. But what I did, the benefit of the upside I've found is like, now when I drink a cup of coffee, I'm like, that shit works. Like I'm like jazzed. I'm like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
I heard someone say recently that they offered a cup of coffee to someone and they said, why would I drink that cup of anxiety? And that resonated in my brain because that's the one thing that still lingers in me. Like depression no longer rules my life. Sadness and defeatism doesn't rule my life, but anxiety still has an ugly head. And when that person said that, I was like, oh, I might have to make a change here.
Yeah, coffee is a big play. You know what's helped me with my anxiety? Outside of kicking coffee.
Having a $150 million company.
That has helped. Cutting out coffee has helped. But I think you'll relate to this. I also realize like all the stuff I've always been anxious over, I've like always stressed about, I've come to realize never happens. Almost never.
Oh, see, I used to think that. And then
should I knock on wood right now?
Then I had a couple of years where it was like everything on my list that I was worried about, they all happened right after one another.
You wouldn't have told me this. Now I'm getting anxious.
I had the country song where just everything got lost, and then like the plan D scenario is like, oh, that happened too.
Okay.
So I used to take solace in that.
All right, well, there goes that theory.
What I have discovered that though is whatever happens, I can get through it. Like whatever happens, it's usually not as bad as my brain says it is, unless my thoughts are fucked. Like whatever I'm thinking about it, that is what makes it miserable or not. And so once you've had an experience where you've lost almost everything and you recover, you're like, I could handle it again.
You realize we're resilient.
The one fear I still have is like, if anything happened to my kids, that's the one I don't know. I don't know that I could ever recover from that, and I don't want to find out if I can recover from that.
I try to block that thought out too.
Yeah, that's probably good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people listening who run, 7-figure companies or are just getting off the ground, and they're following the playbook of my model of 4 products at 25 sales a day at $30 get to $1 million. What advice would you give to those who are following in your footsteps from 6 years ago that you wish someone had told you back then?
Oh, that's a good question. I have a couple things I would say. Like, one, don't give up. Don't get discouraged, because there's going to be hard times, and those hard times are going to make you stronger. It's like you're going to have to go. There's going to be hard times. So just prepare yourself for that. Push through them. And I would say get really focused. Focus on building a brand, and focus on what are you really good at? Focus on, these are the core areas we're just going to crush in. For us, again, the probiotics thing was such a key driver. Like that, focusing on one category just unlocks such huge potential for us. If I look back, I'm like, why did this work so well? And I'm like, that was a big decision we made that changed the course of our whole business.
It sounds like doing less is kind of a theme for you. Whereas early in your career, it was more, go faster, faster, faster. And now you've thought about, what can I take away?
Yeah, I've had to learn to say no. Yeah. No to opportunities. Because as an entrepreneur, a founder, you start to realize there's a lot of ways to make money.
Yeah.
I could be making money over here. I could be making money doing this, doing that. But then you got to kind of sit back and say yeah, but if I put all my focus into one thing, I can make a lot more money than I can if I spread myself across 5 different categories or 5 different businesses.
This is the thing that's going on in my mind. This is the first time I thought about it this way. We all hear about the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. And some people think that the abundance mindset is doing everything. But if you really have an abundance mindset, then you can make as much money as you want with fewer things, with one thing. And ironically, when you get awesome at one thing, you can make as much money as you want. But the scarce mindset, it's like, I'm going to try a little bit of this, try a little bit of this, try a little bit of this, and then you're angsty, and then you're trying the next thing, and you're looking at what everybody else is doing, and you're super busy, and you're broke, and you're anxious, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you really know that there's abundance, then you can be choosy about where you put your focus and be amazing at that.
100%.
And then have a $150 million company.
100%. And that focus goes, it's not just for I'm not just saying products either. It goes across, there's channels too, right? For us, at one point we were spending a ton of money trying to get D2C working. See Mary Ruth, all these other brands killing it on Shopify. We're we're going to do that. We're dumping $2 million a year in the D2C, try to make it work. We're losing our asses. And we stepped back and again said, what are we really good at? What should we focus on? We're really good at Amazon, and we're really good at retail. Fuck D2C for now. We're going to double down on Amazon. We're going to double down on retail. Again, that focus just paid off. It's figuring out what to say no to.
Selfish question to wrap things up. So you came to Capcom back in 2017. Something you said something kind of switched in your brain when you were at the Capitalism Conference, either being around people, and you're speaking at the next one. So what happened in your mind? By the way, it's such a cool story that you're out of shape and getting starting over, come to Capcom. 6 years later, you have a $150 million company, and now you're speaking there.
Yeah,
it's just a point of pride for me.
No, it's awesome.
That makes me really happy.
For sure.
Right? But what switched in your brain, or what did you notice there that kicked you into drive to build something bigger than you had done before?
If I'm being honest, it was a lot of the people, just seeing so many people, and they were young people, young. In my mind, I was these are young kids, in their 20s, and they are just making a ton of money. They're killing it. From an outside perspective, I don't think they have a lot of business experience. Again, we were overconfident, but I was there was just some energy going on. People were showing their screenshots of their saying, I was I was just so fired up after that. The people, the energy, everything. I was I'm pumped.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you this April.
A few years ago, Logan was in the audience at one of our events, the Capitalism Conference, and he looked around and he said, there are so many young people who are killing it. I want to be number one. Now, that was a dangerous goal to set. He grinded his face off and he paid for it. But it was at that event that he felt inspired to do something bigger. And it's a full circle moment because I've asked Logan to speak at the Capitalism Conference in 2024. It's this April 3rd and 4th in Austin, Texas. And Logan is going to be there with other brand builders and industry leaders showing you their playbook for how they build 8 and 9-figure companies. This is where people who are in the audience get inspired to build their next much bigger vision, just like Logan was a few years ago. And now he's running a 9-figure company that everybody is trying to emulate and everybody's trying to beat. If you'd like to join us at our next event, go to capitalism.com/CapCon, and you can get on the waiting list and see if we have spots available for this upcoming CapCon 7. This is Ryan Daniel Moran from capitalism.com. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time.